Good morning, I'm Chris Fox, and today we're talking about how I have been writing 7,000 words a day. So for those who have followed the channel for some time, know 5,000 words has been kind of my magic number for a long time. That was my daily goal. I worked as hard as I could when I had a day job to get that 5,000 words done in a single hour, but I've always been operating off of the premise that 5,000 words is the total. And then a few weeks ago, I released a video called Beware of Limits, and in that video I talked about in past plateaus and raising my goal to 7,000 words a day. And so that's been much more challenging than I would have expected, and it did take a while for me to adjust. But in the next segment of the video, I want to take a look at my screen. We're going to go over Scrivener and my spreadsheet to look at some of the sprints that I've done, and you can see sort of where the challenges lie, and also how I had to modify my plotting process in order to accommodate this new speed. One of the problems that I ran into immediately is the first couple of days in each week I did really well, but then I've written, 15,000 words in 2 days, and I got to take a break to work on the outline because, it's the whole Sun Tzu quote, no plan survives contact with the enemy. I write that outline, and then I start actually writing the book, and the outline, of course, changes. So I'm going to do in the next segment just a little bit of that. We're going to take a look at how I've sort of changed my plotting process and how I'm writing as many words as I am. And I want you to think of this video kind of as a prelude. In January, I'm going to be doing a series called Plot Gardening. That is the same name as my next fiction book. I'm going to explain not just how to plot a novel, but also how to work in the world building. I've got sort of a holistic process, and I want to do a series of videos to support that. In any case, for my rambling, let's jump in and take a look at my screen. Okay, so we're looking at the Scrivener document for Spellship. This was created about 3 weeks ago. I spent roughly a week, 4 days, plotting this out and kind of putting in some basic notes before I started writing it, and then I've sort of been plotting as I go. Now you will notice I've got my characters down here, and this time I subdivided my characters so that they were under the point of view character that they were sort of most closely related to in the book, and that helped me to kind of set up my plot arcs, which was nice. Down here I've got my typical notes for various things that I was working on. There's fewer than I've been in previous books because most of the world building is taking place outside of Scrivener these days. And then if you look at the manuscript itself, you can see that I'm following the story circle, which I've done a video on. If you guys haven't seen that, I will link to that in the comments. But basically there are 8 stages following the hero's journey, and this is me using it. And what you'll see in the earlier sections now, you'll notice that it's just chapters because these have already been written. And in the first section I was using character names, but obviously this tells us very little about what the chapters are about. So by the time I started getting up to the current part of the book I'm into, chapters started taking on more descriptive titles. So you can see if it's white here, it means that the chapter hasn't been written yet. If it's got 2 asterisks in front of it, then it is some plot information. It's not a real chapter. It's just a placeholder scaffolding so that I know what's going to go in the actual chapters that I'm writing. And when I'm done with these, I drag these down to where's my cut chapters. And you can see these are all the ones that I've dropped in. These described various parts of the book that needed to be written as I was writing. In the writing itself, as I'm moving through the book, I'm not actually going sequentially. I'm doing what I've done in previous series, which is writing arcs. So if I've got Aaron on his own in one part of the book, I'll try to write 4 or 5 chapters of what he's doing, and then maybe I'll switch over the next day and I'll do 5 or 6 chapters of Voria, and then the following day, I'll do the same thing with Nara, where I'm trying to rotate it, and instead of switching points of view constantly, I stay in the head of one character at a time and I write for an extended period, so that I feel like I'm kind of getting to know the characters a little bit better. This is the current part of the book that I'm in. You can see I've got my little marker document here that tells me where I'm at. So today is probably going to be a Voria day. I'm going to write a bunch of Voria chapters. Tomorrow will almost certainly be Nara, and then Friday I'm going to finish that up and do the last of the Aaron stuff, so the book will be done. And the total time to write all this stuff is going to be about 2 weeks. So that's a little bit about the plotting. I know that's not a ton of information, but at least you can sort of see what I'm doing in Scrivener. And hopefully there aren't any spoilers here in the chapter names. I don't think there are. So if you are reading the Magitech Chronicles, I hope I didn't ruin anything for you. But in any case, let's jump into my Excel spreadsheet. So this is the word counts I've been working with. And I'll go ahead and blow this up to full size so it's a little easier to see. We'll go up to 200%. Hopefully that's big enough. And you can see in the, let's see, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 days recorded, I wrote just shy of 50,000 words. And notice, you can see here the sprints in this column, and each one of these corresponds to a chapter. instead of setting a raw timer like I describe in 5,000 words per hour, I've reached a point where I don't need it anymore. And so I just write until I'm done with the chapter. So it's the same, everything else, I'm doing exactly what I did in 5,000 words per hour, but just taking the timer away and writing until I complete a given chapter, taking a short break, and then doing the next one. So each one of these, again, does correspond to a chapter, and you can sort of see what my progress is. And at first, it was easy. 7,300 the first day, 7,400 the next day, 7,000 on day 3. And you'll notice that it was 7,001. And that was because I really struggled, but I told myself, no matter what, I'm going to get over 7,000 words. And I wrote that last sprint at like 8:30 at night, which is way later than I normally write. And you can see there were more chapters, and a couple of them were really short. So I was struggling by Wednesday. And then by the time I got into Thursday, 12/7, you can see my total that day was only 2691. It fell way, way down. And this is because by the time I had done my second sprint of the morning, I realized I was going to have to do some major plotting. And so I stopped, and I started doing that plotting, and I spent the rest of the day modifying the outline to make sure that I could do chapters going forward. I didn't beat myself up. I didn't give myself a ton of grief for only hitting 2,600 words. I just did my plotting and moved on. Now, Friday, I was pretty exhausted. I've been writing a lot that week, but I really wanted to try for my 7,000 words, and I just didn't hit it. I just didn't. I got 6,000 words into the day. I was feeling exhausted and tired, and I gave myself a pass, figuring I would make it up the following week. So we roll into week 2. This is Monday, 12/11. I beat that 7,000 words without too much effort. By day 2, I was running into the same problem where I knew the outline wasn't strong enough, and this time I jumped on it much, much sooner. And I still got myself a good 4,500 words that day, even though I had to do a lot of plotting. And I also realized that I'm going to have to modify my process going forward. I can't just give myself a flat goal every day of 7,000 or 8,000 words or whatever my goal is and expect to hit that. I have got to accept that at some points in the writing process, days are going to be lower because I'm going to have to cry uncle and do outlining. And instead of beating myself up and saying, oh, that's not 7,000 words that particular day, I need to be totally okay with it and then just write, the next day, get right back into it. And you can see that's what I did here. On 12/13, I had 7,500 words, and it felt easy. I was done with this stuff by like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm happy with the quality of the words, and today and tomorrow I'm really, really excited because the last chapters in the book are pretty well fleshed out. I know what I'm going to write. The book's got a strong ending. And so we should see 12/14 and 12/15 look very similar to this, and the book's finished. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how I have been writing 7,000 words a day. I'm just doing sprint after sprint after sprint. I know ahead of time when I'm writing, I'm following all of the stuff that I learned in 5,000 words per hour, and I'm just pushing myself. And let me tell you guys, taking weekends off is amazing, absolutely amazing. I've been working 7 days a week for so long that I didn't realize the tax that had on me. And now I actually am starting to look forward to Mondays because I feel rested when I start the writing. So hopefully this is useful. I know it's a little bit disjointed. If it's useful, please throw it a like or leave it a comment. Also, the end of the video now has a new kind of bumper, I guess they're called, with my logo. I now have a logo. So if you like that logo, let me know what you think in the comments. All right, guys, I will see you next week. I'm going to get back to the writing.